Namaste, and thank you. It's been a long time since I've been here at IIT Delhi, and it's phenomenal, all the great progress that has taken place since then. In a sense, my first connection with India came because of the IITs. One of the great people who worked for me said that he would go over to India and hire about 15 people who'd been students at IIT, and that would strengthen Microsoft's engineering capabilities. At the time, we only had a few hundred people, but even so, it was so hard to find amazing engineers, I thought that was a good idea. At the time, the Indian press said this was a terrible thing because all these great people were leaving the country. The U.S. press said this was a terrible thing, all these people coming from another country. But I think now, over 25 years later, we can say that was a phenomenal thing, both for India and for the United States, and of course for Microsoft itself. A number of those people are the ones who came back to India, started up the offices here, and earlier this week I was down in Hyderabad at the biggest site for Microsoft development in India, celebrating the 25th anniversary at a time where Microsoft now has more than 25,000 amazing people here in India doing work. And if I think back on my Microsoft career and the wonderful people that I got to work with and why I enjoyed that so much, a very high percentage of them are people who joined from India. First and foremost, though, in that list would have to be Satya Nadella, who we're so lucky to have as the CEO. Well, I'm now looking at India in a far broader way than just the Microsoft lens. You know, I'm lucky enough through the work of the foundation to look at innovators in India who can help with all kinds of problems, starting with health, but also agriculture, gender, climate, so many areas that we need fantastic Indian innovation. And Indian innovation really gets stronger all the time. One thing you can count on is that because India is a big country, people understand its innovation. It's not really valuable at small scale, and nor is it valuable if the cost is so high that only a small percentage of the people can get access to it. And so this is a fascinating time. The need for innovation to deal with many different challenges that I'll talk about is greater than ever. But the pace of innovation is also rising to meet that challenge. I'd say, you're all lucky to be here and have gotten an incredible education. The complexity of how we take technology and we shape it, you'll get an opportunity to play a big role there. And so, of course, I'd suggest that not only should you consider your career in terms of the traditional measure of success, which is the financial impact, although that's fine and important, but also to consider whatever role it is you take on, how that relates to achieving social equality. We have many problems in the world that only by taking that point of view can we shape innovations to improve the world as much as possible. Well, let me start with health because that's the area that the Gates Foundation does the majority of its work in. When we got going, we saw that there were vaccines, like one for diarrhea, that was only available in the rich countries. It's called the rotavirus vaccine, and that was deeply ironic because the kids in those countries had almost no risk of having that disease kill them. And the rest of the kids, including at that time here in India, who were at great risk, did not have that vaccine. And so I was excited to see here was a challenge that taking the resources I was lucky enough to have from Microsoft and applying them, we could literally save millions of lives. And in fact, that has absolutely come true. But a key part of that story is the relationship that the foundation built with the Indian vaccine manufacturers. They were the ones who, with resources from us and the right strategy, managed to make not only that rotavirus vaccine, but measles vaccine, pentavalent vaccine, pneumococcus vaccine, incredible a number of important vaccines. And so 20 years ago, Indian kids weren't getting those vaccines, even measles, which of course is so important. And now the progress is phenomenal. Virtually all the babies born in India get a full set of these vaccines. And that is the primary reason that something I consider a miracle has happened, which is a third as many children die every year before their 5th birthday than did 20 years ago. And that's despite the population increase. Now, most people, when you ask them, don't know that because, it's in terms of news, what day were they supposed to run that headline? It's been a gradual thing, year by year, vaccine by vaccine, but it's incredible that over that time span, that adds up to millions and millions of children. We also saw during the COVID pandemic that Indian capacity to make low-cost vaccines was very, very important. And so we worked with many of these companies to get their vaccines out quickly and make them broadly available. So the story of vaccines is a phenomenal one, and there's still, even in that one area, there's still a lot more to do. We don't have a vaccine for tuberculosis. That's the #1 infectious disease killer in the world, killing 1.8 million people a year. For about 2 years, COVID got ahead. TB was #2. But now we're back to the situation that's prevailed for the last century, which is TB is very much in the lead. And of course, we should be able to get a vaccine. The health challenges we need to take on go even beyond infectious diseases. If you had to say what's the health innovation I'm most excited about right now, it's the deep insights we're gaining into malnutrition. Malnutrition is a terrible thing. Not only does it make a child more fragile and therefore more susceptible to all diseases, but it also means that even the children who survive, if they were malnourished, their physical body and their mental capacity never achieves their full potential. So the fact that in Africa, over 40% of kids have to suffer that is an incredible tragedy. And the story of understanding what's going on there is an incredible tale of science. It's required understanding the microbiome. It's required mass sequencing. We had to invent a capsule that you could swallow so we could see exactly what was going on with the kids who had inflammation and who didn't have inflammation. And I would say we're probably on a 5-year path to have very cheap tools that will bring malnutrition down by over 90%. The same thing, I think, will happen with anemia. In fact, we're even closer to a solution on that. And as we've studied that, we've seen that solving anemia not only helps the pregnant mother and her mental state dramatically, but also is the biggest thing we've ever done to improve the mental development of the child. And so there's a lot that the sciences are now on the verge of explaining to us. In fact, these great insights that come from human biology, the great insights that come from human biology also give us the understanding of how we can take livestock and plant seeds and also make those far more productive, far more nutritious, even in the face of climate change that is a huge challenge that I'll get into. Another place that India leads, but there's a lot more that all of you can be involved in driving forward, is this digital public infrastructure. You know, no country is more able to take government benefits and get them out efficiently and effectively to their citizens than India. You know, you would have expected rich countries or others to do that, but in fact, they did not. And so that basic structure that starts with identity and bank accounts and payments is just foundational. And as part of this visit, I'm now seeing how that foundation is being built out in agriculture with profiles of farmers to understand what they need and give them advice, built out with health records so that we can help people not only with infectious diseases, but the challenge that's coming in the future with the growth of the non-communicable diseases being a huge thing. And that digital public infrastructure will help us with these climate problems. I was in Odisha yesterday, and what they showed is that they've registered the farmers and registered what type of crops they grow and what land they own. And so they're able to take all the data about pests, partly informed by local reports, partly from satellite data, and actually immediately respond before any infestation gets to a large area. So before they had this digital system in 2018, there was an outbreak that affected most of the state's paddy crop. And it's actually that year, 2018, where working with Samagra, they started to register those farmers. And now they literally have a control center. You know, when you walk in, you think, wow, this is agriculture, but, you know, you've got a command center and maps and people doing queries and sending out messages. You know, I felt very much at home, although I don't come from a farming background. But more recently, when they faced a infestation that would have been every bit as bad if they hadn't had this new system, their ability to respond quickly, to give advice, to talk to all the neighbors, they avoided that infestation, causing 90% of the damage that would have. And so that all starts, you know, with an Aadhaar identity, listing those farmers, getting the information, making sure it's up to date. And the cost to do that, you know, because of the miracle of digital technologies, is very, very low. Now, that's the kind of system that works even without the recent breakthrough we had in artificial intelligence. I have to admit I'm someone who was a little unsure when computers would be able to read and to write. I mean, after all, even when I was young, this was the dream. AI, you know, how did the brain work? How are we going to match that in software? And, you know, I have to say we underestimated how hard that would be. So for decade after decade, although AI did some things, this one thing of reading and writing seemed to be beyond its capability. And so the scale up of the LLMs now shows us that that's completely within reach. And so the number of ways we're going to apply that, particularly as we make it more efficient, as we make it completely accurate, extends to so many applications. You know, even now there's a prototype where those farmers can get advice, where the extension experts are made far more efficient by having that. And, you know, it's not that hard to create these applications. If you have the data, you have the same information you use to educate humans, you can build these agents and make sure they're highly accurate. I'd say the impact of that will be even greater in education than any other domain. We've always known that having an individual tutor who knows what you've learned, knows how to motivate you, that's the fastest way to learn. And even classroom teaching, we compare to that. And so now, these AIs, with many great projects going on to create them, offer the potential for every student to have that type of tutor. A great example in India is Wadhwani. They're analyzing the samples of Gujarati children reading and building a model of how they learn the native language and looking at where students struggle, what the phonetic model is, what order you should teach that, what kind of practice you need, and how to get those readers, many of whom are behind their grade level, but if you use the software in the right way, they can catch up. And that will, of course, be extended to all Indian languages. Nanda Neelankani's organization, People Plus, is working on AI for education as well. And this is great news for students. You know, they don't have the time to give the feedback, the time to personalize the material, and yet now they can engage the student in how they should work with these tutors. A great example would be if you have a fourth grader who's fallen behind on something like fractions, assigning that and making it available through a low-cost cell phone is very straightforward. A startup called Sarvam.ai, which was co-founded by an IIT Delhi alum, are piloting a bot that can read the textbook with the student and make it far more understandable. So it's connecting into their text, but making it far more engaging. And of course, if we can supercharge education, and if we can take every child born in India and give them a very high quality education, the potential that unlocks is phenomenal. And of course, it won't stop in India. Whatever's learned here as a pilot, organizations like the Gates Foundation will make sure that gets used all over the world, including in Africa. So, I think you have a very bright future. No matter what your specialty is, whether it's engineering or discovering new drugs or policy work, the AI advances will give you opportunities and force you to think through these new systems in a very deep way. I'll bet when I come back here, say it's 5 years from now, some of you will be able to tell me about new technologies you've created to inspire students, to help farmers, to solve healthcare problems, and to help us with climate. I didn't want to leave that out. Very important challenge that India will be deeply affected by. Another area that I work with, and I see great promise now that we're focused on the problem and that we'll be using these latest tools to redesign steel manufacturing, cement manufacturing, all the industrial processes that today are responsible for these emissions. So you have many ways that you can make a difference. You're already Ma Chao, whatever that means. So let me just finish by saying I'm excited to see the great things you'll be able to do for India and for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for such inspiring words and the informative remarks. The talk was a very Machao talk. We move on to the next section of our program, which is the question and answer session. And to moderate this session, I invite Ghazal Kalra on stage. Ghazal is an IIT Delhi alum and an entrepreneur. Fun fact, what keeps her on her toes? is a 5-year-old daughter who is watching this session in live through the streaming link. Thank you. Ghazal, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Subodh. It's great to be here with you, Bill, today, and such a joy to be back on campus. I hope this turns into Chai Pe Charcha, which I hear you've been enjoying a lot on this trip. So, Bill, I must start with the last time I saw you in person. You were back in 2014, you were the speaker at my graduation from Stanford. You spoke about the power of optimism and the need to innovate with empathy. You said, and it stayed with me since, that if we innovate without empathy, we're not solving problems, we're just working on puzzles. For me, the purpose, the problems, and the opportunity to innovate were right here. And that made me move back and start my venture right in Delhi. Thank you for those words of wisdom back then. Fast forward, 2024, we're here, a place that was home for 4 years for me. I want to ask you, Bill, you've been visiting India over these years in this decade many times. What, according to you, has fundamentally changed in India? And as you see the evolution of innovation, how do you see build from India for India and build from India for the world?
Well, I think even in the first days I came, I saw that the depth of talent was incredible, and that it was something to watch and participate in, whether my Microsoft work or as we put the foundation together. By far our biggest overseas group, by far the most we do in any country all over the world is here in India. We focus a bit on the poor parts of India and the big challenges, but what we're learning here not only can help for the 1.4 billion, but we intentionally are doing it in such a way that it helps us understand what we need to do on a global basis. And it's been nice that the continuous improvement, I'd say the health system, the education system, and the entrepreneurship. I love the fact that the tech sector has grown so much. It started with the services. It was actually the association, NASCOM, was more about consulting than it was unique software. But we all knew that that would change over time. Now we have incredible examples of successful companies here. I think many of the technologists, even at a young age, are thinking in social terms. They become philanthropists. And so it's kind of a continuous thing. There hasn't been any interruption that every time I come here I say, wow, we need to build deeper partnerships with the groups here.
Great. I hope your visit translates into some more partnerships with IITs as well. We received an incredible number of questions from students and faculty for the student session. Over 2,000, I'm told. I bet 80% of those were asked from ChatGPT. About a lot of them were about how do I get a job at Microsoft, or how can I be the next CEO of Microsoft. The topic we heard the most, besides how to become a billionaire, was AI. So let's get started with the first student question. Arya Ugandra.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gates. So the question that I'd like to ask is, so how do you see AI evolving in the next decade, and how do you see it impacting the society?
Yeah, so I'd say this is the most transformative technology in my lifetime. And that's saying a lot. The microprocessor, which I got to see when I was just 14 years old, and say, wow, this is going to improve exponentially. And, essentially that meant free computing. The internet, when it came along, which essentially meant free communication. But with AI, in its current form, you're talking about, sort of white-collar type thinking almost becoming free. We have to get the quality up and the cost down, but that's the direction we're headed in. And then there'll be a complementary revolution as the AI is embodied into physical robots that will be quite revolutionary from a blue-collar work point of view. And so that, it's in one respect incredibly fantastic. All the advances in technology and history have raised the human condition. They brought challenges. Maybe you could say nuclear weapons was more negative than positive, but most of the advances, farming productivity that concerned people or intense use of energy, we eventually, the extra productivity meant that we met more needs. And certainly in the next decade, that's what AI will be about. Everything that becomes more productive, you can do it in a higher quality way, you can do more of it. In the case of writing software, the Microsoft engineers are now 30% more productive. And we're not saying, okay, we need less engineers. What we want is some of that to get more software and some of it to get higher quality software. So we'll, spend the productivity in those dimensions, not in some sort of a cost-saving direction. Likewise, if you think about the demand for tutoring or the demand for medical advice, what you might call the price elasticity, if it's cheap enough, people would love to have that available. It's very dramatic. And so like computing, nobody would say, okay, we have too many computers. No, we came up with ways, and now AI, we've taken that to kind of a mind-blowing level, how much computation we need. And so it's, it'll start as what we call the co-pilot that's helping you get things done. And then there will be some low-level things that it will be able to do once we've got the reliability and everything very strong. Some things it will do in a non-supervised type fashion. And so it's, it's kind of wondrous for drug discovery. It's wondrous for making, the way you interact with the government, the way you get advice, all of those things, even areas that are creativity that aren't my expertise, but a lot will come out of that. So this is the most profound technology, and it could develop even faster than we expect. We don't really know, for example, how good will ChatGPT-5 be? We don't know. It'll be better, but how much better will it be? And eventually you get to a point where you have a system that understands itself in terms of driving self-improvement.
To add a follow-on question, you've seen so many cycles of technology that have fundamentally disrupted the future of innovation. What, if anything, concerns you about this?
Well, I'll say one thing that's really good about it, which is that the end-user infrastructure you need to deliver this, to let a student in a poor household in India have access, if they have the mobile network and they have the phone, that's exactly what we deliver the AI over. So except for the back-end capacity, you might call it the intelligence services, that the aggregate demand for that will exceed supply for a while. Except for that one piece, we've already laid the framework. And of course, India, in terms of the cost of that network and coverage, it's quite good today, cheaper than anywhere else in the world, and quite pervasive. And so actually, of all the technologies, with that one footnote about the back end, this one is able to suffuse to the world at large faster than any other technology. You know, personal computers, you had to buy the hardware. Advanced cell phones, you had to buy the hardware, you had to get those networks installed. And in terms of usability, what we're doing with the AI is we're using your language. And when I say your language, I don't just mean English and Hindi. I mean, and there's a lot of great work in India and Africa and all over the world to train these models so that not only in textual form or text on the screen, but talking input and speech output, these things in terms of their accent and degree of understanding will meet you with the whatever language that you want to engage with. So usability and getting out to the users, this is quite phenomenal. You know, even I worry that, oh wow, when it gets really good, you know, we'll have a problem that we've never even had to consider, which is a problem of excess. You know, and yes, we can take care of handicapped people, we can take care of old people, we can reduce the length of the work week. You know, a lot of things, because work is not sort of the ultimate thing, like, oh no, I need more work. If you need more work, we'll run the clock backwards and all of us can be farmers trying to, you know, grow enough. Leisure time really is a good thing used properly, and we're going to have more leisure time. So you almost get into a philosophical question when you have this, wow, food, disease, war, you know, those are taken care of. Okay, now, how do we, what is our highest fulfillment?
Playing pickleball.
Yeah, she mentioned pickleball, which you may not have heard of. It's a reasonably North American phenomenon of a paddle sport.
It's taking up.
Is it?
Yes,
Good.
in Gurgaon
I love pickleball, so.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Bitulia. Yes, there.
Hello, sir. It's truly an honor. So my question to you is, what do you think are the most promising technological advancements that can improve global healthcare, especially in rural areas? And how can we as students and young professionals contribute to these advancements? Thank you.
Yeah, to me, malnutrition is very much the top of the list because its effect on your entire life is so profound. I mean, even if you look at the mental capacity that you end up with, you're very, very much shortchanged by these dietary problems. And it was amazing to me how little research was going into this. The market allocates resources according to whether or not buyers have money. And so there are things like malaria or sickle cell disease or malnutrition that the people who are afflicted, by and large, have almost no money. And so, we're way more interested in other diseases and other things. And so, in terms of the human condition, it's a huge misallocation. And we need governments and philanthropy come in to complement those market signals to make sure these things get worked on. Malnutrition, because of all the tools of biology, most of which were funded by trying to deal with cancer, which is a huge market, and so the private sector does wonderful work on going after that, but we get the trickle-down benefit that the tools of gene sequencing and understanding immunology now we can apply to these deep conditions of inequity. And, so that's the one that absolutely I would put at the top of the list. Once we get past that and a few other conditions, then the idea of shifting to some of the resources to chronic conditions will start to be important. In dinner last night, I was hearing the people who look at heart disease and diabetes describe how particularly starting in the south of India, but for the country as a whole, that's beginning to rival all of the infectious and even nutritional type issues. So, once we get done with malnutrition, we'll still have work to do.
Absolutely. And very short answer, but what will, at the core, accelerate the speed of healthcare innovation across the world?
Well, of course, the government funding of particularly primary health care, has taken our miracle interventions like taking good care of women during pregnancy, supplementing them, and making sure that young kids are taken care of and they're on their growth path, they get their vaccines. That's fairly low cost, because those are kind of acute conditions. You have 9 months, you have the first couple of years. And so the overall system for delivery is part of it. And then the research that gave us those great new tools. And that's going to be the playbook that, again, we have to have for the chronic diseases. But the capacity for delivery is more challenged, because if somebody, say at age 30, they develop diabetes or a heart condition, you've got, 40, 50 years that you want them to be taking medicines and to be compliant. And, India will have the benefit of the fact that the rich countries have made this transition a long time ago. In a few cases, we show how to do those things well. In terms of compliance and staying on your medicines and changing your exercise and dietary habits, actually, those are unsolved problems. And so, there'll be sort of a collaboration to take what even the rich countries have not done well and finally solve that.
I mean, it's a healthier future for sure. Now is my favorite question. Ishant Bansal. It's a great question.
Good afternoon, sir. If you were at our age, what would you be building or learning?
Should I rephrase that?
Sure.
If you were our age, what would you be building or learning?
Yeah, it's hard to go back. Software was so cool. I was 14 when I first really started programming, and it was like this gigantic puzzle to learn to be able to do that well. I'm sure that if I was a student today, that the mysteries of AI, would draw me in. I mean, it's still kind of weird. Even these systems that are working so well, we don't actually understand them. We understand how to create them, but we don't understand how they encode knowledge. There's something very profound there. So I would definitely be drawn to that. Although I have to say, some of the climate-related technologies, for example, nuclear fusion, which is not imminent, but it's potentially an infinite source of low-cost energy that's not at all weather-dependent. You can put it wherever you want. It has a few challenges, but not quite the same challenges of nuclear fission. Working a career on that, particularly with these rich AI-driven models of plasmas, that would be something that I would at least consider. Working on some fundamental problem like making plants more efficient. Photosynthesis, which is the basic mechanism that allows complex life, actually is more than a factor of 2 inefficient compared to what it could be. And so it's such a profound thing to think, okay, I can even go in and during my lifetime work on something like that. So I don't know, grand scientific challenges are the kind of thing that would draw on my curiosity, where 24 hours a day I'd be trying to think about it and think, okay, can I figure this out? Why hasn't somebody else figured this out? What is the trick here, like software was for me? So I still think of science the frontiers of science and engineering as where you have a chance probably to have the biggest impact.
Very profound. Moving on to the next question we have from Avijit Mandal.
Good afternoon, Bill. My question is, other than AI, what emerging technology or innovation are you looking forward to, and how do you think it will shape the future, be it private, healthcare, or education?
You know, I might, if I could understand exactly how these AIs work, that I might go for that. I know a lot of people who are working on longevity, and it's not an area because we have so many things like malaria and TB and malnutrition that are much more about deep inequity. So not an area that I pushed into, but this, you know, this question of why do cells age, and you know, now, you know, it's pretty clear it's kind of an optional thing for cells to age. And so right up there with the profound influence of AI, having AI available as a tools, if in the field of biology, you know, we can create essentially arbitrary longevity, you know, that is kind of a dilemma. It's very interesting work, just like the AI work. And, you know, I would love to understand the answer to the puzzle, although, you know, for humanity, it'll be a kind of a shaking change if we're able to deliver on that.
It circles back to what is the purpose of life and what do we do with more of the years if we can live longer. Moving on to the next question, can we have Durga Prasad Tripathi?
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is, with increasing pace of technology change, how do you ensure that innovation remain inclusive and equitable for all members of society? Thank you.
Well, one of the ways that technology needs to be made inclusive is to make it extremely inexpensive. And, you know, for example, we have technologies today like gene therapy where the individual cure is several $1 million. And so there are a very small number of people who've actually been cured of sickle cell disease, which is an awful disease, and this cure actually makes their life completely normal lifespan, none of the terrible things there. But, you know, even a rich country like the United States can't afford to provide that to everyone. So it's, as everything that's expensive is deeply inequitable. And so how do you solve that? Well, in that particular case, it actually is a grand challenge that the foundation is taking on, that instead of taking your cells and working on them outside your body and then putting them back in, so-called ex vivo, we're going for a single shot that homes in on, in that case, the hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow, and actually does a high degree of editing. And so we have a real promise that we'll be able to take that and make it less than $1,000 per person that is cured. You know, so cost is very much the key. You've got to get the capacity to make things, and you've got to lower the cost of things. I'll give another example, which is, you know, during the pandemic, people were saying, hey, you know, when the vaccines are in short supply, who gets them? And there's no good answer for that. You know, so my answer is that we should build in the globe enough manufacturing capacity that we don't have that shortage. You know, that we can make the vaccines as fast as we can distribute them. And that's why we're working with partners, including companies like Serum, to take this mRNA approach and build a sort of mind-blowing capacity for that. You know, so instead of trying to pick who deserves it most, you basically solve the problem by having infinite capacity.
Thank you, Bill. We'll move on to the last question because I can see the team sort of giving a time check. Shelja Pandey, if you could get through the question quickly and maybe a quick answer.
Hello, Mr. Gates. Thank you for being here with us today. My question is, you inspire so many people around the world. What inspires you on a daily basis?
It's a great question.
Well, I know when I was a student and, so fascinated by math problems, some of the other students were like, yeah, that's so boring. Why should we care about that? If they'd really known how much more interesting my life was going to be, in terms of meeting interesting people, maybe they would have worked on those math problems. I don't know. I didn't know. I just liked, the puzzles and found them very interesting. But, I am so lucky that I get to work with incredible people. If somebody's made a breakthrough that's going to improve health, like the people working on this low-cost gene therapy, I get to sit and talk to them and, bring my past experience of, okay, what worked at Microsoft, what didn't work, how do we build partnerships, how do we get enough money, how do we help them, say it's going to take 10 years. A lot of good technologies take patience, and you have to, be willing to deal in very high risk to get something that's going to be dramatic. And so the work I do, the people I get to meet, and even though many projects don't succeed, a high enough percentage do, that I get to see the results of that. And so it's really the quality of the people you work with and the profound nature of the problems you get to work on that, take for me, what is, I'm not working to save money or something, but still make it the thing I choose to do.
Fantastic. So with that, Bill, we love rapid fires. So we have got Arshia Diman here, who's all set to ask you a bunch of questions. There's only one rule, one word or one sentence.
Okay.
Hi, Bill. It's an honor to speak with you. So as Ghazal already mentioned, this will be a rapid fire round, so just be quick and short with your answers. With that, I'll start with a very simple question. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Superpower.
I'd like to be smarter.
What is your favorite film about AI or robots?
Her. It's called Her. It's very good.
Which year would you travel to with the time machine and why?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to go backwards, I don't think. I can read about the stuff from the past, but I'm not sure I'd want to go forwards either because it would spoil, it'd kind of ruin the plot in a way. I don't know. I like the present year.
What's the first word you start with on Wordle?
First.
What's the first word you start with on Wordle?
Oh, right now I use trace, T-R-A-C-E.
A local question, but what is your favorite Indian food?
I'm supposed to say tea?
Chai.
Chai. No, chicken tikka masala.
What's one thing on your bucket list this year?
Go to the Paris Olympics.
This is a tough one, but if not a technologist or a philanthropist, what career would you have pursued?
If you weren't a technologist or a philanthropist.
Wow. If technology is broad, I don't know. I mean, my dad was a lawyer, and I admired him a great deal. He set an incredible example for me, and he actually helped start the foundation. And when I was very young, because of my dad, I wanted to be a lawyer. But then this computer thing distracted me. And now I employ thousands of lawyers.
If you had to set up Microsoft today, what would you do differently?
You know, Microsoft, we made a lot of mistakes, but our basic idea that software was magic and that if we got very good at writing software, we hired better people, we had better tools, and we thought of ourselves as a multi-product software company. Our competitors were like, WordPerfect had a word processor, Ashton Tate had a database, Lotus had a spreadsheet, and we were like, we don't care about individual products as much. We have the best software factory in the world. And so if something new comes along, we're just like 5 times faster than those companies. And because they didn't think broadly, they would never invest in the kind of tools that we had. And so we could just outrun them, you know. And so we did make a lot of mistakes. I mean, you know, the one I might regret the most is that we should have done the operating system for the phone. So what was called Windows Mobile, if we hadn't made a few really bad mistakes, would have the position that Android has today as the standard OS for all the non-Apple phones. And, you know, I made a lot of those mistakes, so I feel bad about it.
So this is a this or that segment, so you have to choose one option.
Okay, this.
So Taj Mahal or Eiffel Tower?
Oh, Taj is more classic.
Super Bowl or FIFA World Cup?
Well, maybe neither for me.
So this is the last question. It's a tough one. A life without books or a life without technology?
Tough one.
Well, I'll give up the physical books since and read off the screen, I guess.
That's it, Bill. Thank you so much for answering these questions.
Thank you.
So that was fun. And that also brings the session to a close. Thank you, Bill. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
I think you have to do an
So,
unveiling
well, that was excellent. It was fun. It was engaging.
Me?
Now, for a final moment, we request Bill to unveil a special event for us. Joining us on stage is TRIST 2024 is a student-led, student-coordinated technical festival, perhaps one of the largest in North India. And thank you, Bill, for unveiling the TRIST festival for us. Wait. One last question, Bill. If you can quickly have a selfie, get together and have a selfie here. Yeah, please.